Welcome back to, what was the title? Anarchist AI Infrastructure, Prefigurative Computing and Responsible Alternatives. In the last video, we had some fun complaining about how ChatGPT sucks and offering some ways to think about how AI could be different. In this video, we're going to step away from technology for a bit and get overtly political. As a disclaimer, I should say, I read about a lot of these political ideas online, but my formal training is in computer science, and my day job is literally working directly for the state, so my position here is a little bit compromised. However, I've been steeped in the heavily interdisciplinary vibe of UC Santa Cruz for many years, and I've picked up some ideas and perspectives. Please consider me something of an amateur anarchist today rather than a professional one. If UC Santa Cruz really is the original authority on questioning authority, I don't think you need to trust me because I'm the teacher here or because I have the right answer. You should follow these breadcrumbs for yourself. Now, on to the anarchy. If anarchy brings to mind burning barrels and bloody revolutions, then I need you to scale that back. Today we're talking about something more philosophical, something that might just be simplified to anti-hegemony. We're talking about ideas you could read about in an academic textbook, even if that textbook is quoting revolutionaries. This is going to be a quick tour of some concepts that I've felt useful in my own progress of coming up with a meaningful response to hegemonic AI. There's this idea of convivial tools, obviously enough from a book called Tools for Conviviality by Ivan Illich. If you did the assigned reading, you know the tools he's talking about are things like hospitals and schools, but he'd probably be talking about generative AI today if he could. The idea is that as these tools mature, there's a point where they finally become generally useful. And then there's another point where they become inescapable. If a wheeled vehicle like a bicycle is useful for getting around, but we continue to develop wheel-based transportations that grow into roads, parking lots, freeways, and capital C car culture, there are many places in the world that are only effectively livable if you have access to a car, and even a bike doesn't help much in those places. Illich's convivial tools are those that, at the human scale, remain under personal control and serve their human users without requiring that the humans serve them. You can inspect them, understand how they work without any advanced education on the topic. For this AI stuff, you should be able to run a chatbot as a self-contained app on your laptop. You shouldn't have to agree to give up your personal data. You should be able to mod, remix, and extend your own AI tools without waiting for an update from your corporate provider. Some people misread Illich as if he's saying that we need to smash the roads and return to bike-only lifestyles. Primitivism, as it's known, is its own area of anarchist thought that I'm not reviewing here. If hegemonic AI is car culture, then I want you to at least know that skateboards exist and that they can roll on our existing roads. I think we could have convivial AI tools if more people could even think about the concept and try moving in that direction. The next topic is appropriate technology. There's something to be said about using the right tool for the job. Even if a plane is faster than a car, it makes sense to use a car for most trips in our society. Likewise, sometimes a skateboard, even just a pair of shoes, 2 pounds, is the right move. Another 1970s idea, appropriate technology, is associated with E.F. Schumacher in the book Small is Beautiful. This maps onto the AI situation easily. The right size of model for you to use for the task is probably in the medium to small range, not the absolute maximum size ever achieved by one of the hegemonic AI providers, not manifest destiny incarnate. For a plausible student question like, when is P2 due? Or what's a present-day analog for this old idea in the assigned reading? A small model will probably do fine. Or at least it will if it's been plugged into the appropriate systems to resolve the hyperlocal meaning of P2 or this assigned reading. OpenAI and their frenemies are building their tools as moves in this grand game of hegemony. You're just going to school. I'm just teaching a class. I want you to experience a huge range of technologies so you can make an informed choice about what's appropriate for your situation. If your choice is simply between the scale max ChatGPT, Claude, and Gemini, there's no good way to pick which one is appropriate. When I do get around to offering you my own response to this hegemony, it's not going to be something that can be simply scaled up to serve as an alternative to ChatGPT. So while we're on the topic of appropriate scale, I want to bring in Murray Bookchin's notion of municipalism. Think about the word municipality or city. Municipalism is about building direct democracy systems at the scale of cities, or maybe more specifically the scale of towns. There's something special about the scale of a town where you don't need to elect representatives, outsource management to consultants, or use other forms of potentially distorting indirection. The people impacted by a policy can be the same ones debating it and the same ones implementing it. By putting the emphasis on the town scale, Bookchin is trying to create lots of room for decentralization at the broader scales. One town doesn't need to follow the rules of another town. They don't need to follow the emperor or the god king. One town can learn from another town's mistakes or stick with something that only makes sense for hyperlocal reasons. To foreshadow the next video in this series, we'll be looking at UC Santa Cruz, the city on a hill, as the municipality of interest. The campus is going to be the scale of our anarchistic, or at least counter-hegemonic AI infrastructure. If we want to counter these hegemonic systems, how are we going to do it? What's the strategy? Despite mounting critique and blatant dominance displays, these hegemonic AI systems seem to grow unchecked. It's not enough to say ChatGPT is bad. We need to have some actually existing alternatives. Counterpower, or dual power, is associated with Vladimir Lenin in the time of the Russian Revolution. But to bring it closer to home in the United States, you could think about an idea from Saul Alinsky's Rules for Radicals. The quote, "The price of a successful attack is a constructive alternative." So what's the alternative? What alternative could plausibly, if uncomfortably, live alongside ChatGPT? You and I are not mega corporations. We're not even particularly big players within UC Santa Cruz. I can't convince UC Santa Cruz Information Technology Services to turn off Gemini and turn on some alternative that doesn't exist yet. As you'll see in the next video, I'm brewing up my own alternative AI infrastructure for UC Santa Cruz. It integrates with key UCSC technical systems, but ITS doesn't control it. It's not an official campus service, and it has no commercial funding and no institutional funding. But there's a sense in which it's more of a campus service than ChatGPT is or could ever be. Responsibility, a term in the title of my video series here, comes from Donna Haraway's book, Staying with the Trouble. This is Donna Haraway of UC Santa Cruz, by the way. It's about having the capacity and an obligation to respond to a situation. It's quite different from simply being responsible. When it feels like your choice is between ChatGPT, Claude, and Gemini, or nothing at all, I completely understand the idea that nothing at all feels like the only possible responsible choice. At the same time, knowing how useful generative AI has been in my personal learning and the ability to gather and craft materials for teaching others, opting out also feels irresponsible too. At least if you are seriously committed to your own learning, as I'd hope you would be as a student. I want you to feel like you have the capacity to mount an actual response to the full scale of hegemonic AI. I want you to think about how a simple opt-out strategy still leaves those systems unchallenged. Choosing not to engage is a form of acceptance of the world as it is. I don't want you to think some new technology or societal mechanism is going to swoop in and solve the situation. At the same time, I don't want you to give up. Between hype and disgust, there's an interesting, messy, and entangled situation where you can actually make a response. This is the Staying with the Trouble from the book's title. So what does it look like to do work from inside the mess? I'm a professor here, so I'm supposed to do research. If I want to do research in artificial intelligence or in pedagogy, and I do, there are some ways to do that too easily slide into supporting the hegemonic modes of AI. I could just try to fix or incrementally improve how we do higher education using AI. I could try to automate my TAs or myself out of a job, and it might even sort of work. Ivan Illich, the same guy who gave us the idea of convivial tools, gave us this idea of counterfoil research. Rather than about making existing systems better, this research is about revealing the system's assumptions, about tracing the dependencies it creates and the harms it normalizes. It asks, what would it look like to not need this system in the first place? I don't want to do Google-sponsored research on using Gemini to detect ChatGPT-generated essays. I'm interested in how AI might be part of getting inauthentic essay writing exercises out of our education system. The big picture behind many of these anarchism-related ideas I'm bringing up is that you can do incremental work to approach the world you want. We don't have to have a foolproof plan to defeat OpenAI to get started on this work. There's this idea of prefigurative politics, where you start to build the new society you want within the shell of the old one, associated with Karl Boggs. But it's not just about starting small. There's this idea that the means must embody the ends. That is, the means you employ to achieve the ends need to be consistent with the end you're trying to achieve. Let me apply this back to the AI situation. I don't think AI should require your private data, massive natural resource supplies, or giving up local control over any of the issues that I raised in the first video. So I'm going to be prefigurative about it. My alternative, even if in a temporary or baby form, shouldn't do those things either. I can't take ChatGPT, slap an Anarchy GPT sticker on it, and then somehow figure out how to remove the hegemony later. In the prefiguration strategy, you get a meaningful taste of the world we're building, even if we're only getting started building it. If it seems to be working, others can copy and remix the methods. Okay, so hopefully you've learned a bunch of new names and words that you can look up on Wikipedia or ask your chatbot about. That's how I learned about a lot of these ideas, by the way. The common thread here is that, as the course title suggests, the future is not set. You can, and I think you should, be able to respond to the hegemonic mode of AI. Convivial tools are about making systems that serve humans without slipping into making systems that humans need to serve. Appropriate technologies are about finding the small to medium scale approach that is relevant to you and your community, even as others around you are racing to work at the maximal global scale. Municipalism is about focusing on organizing communities small enough to support direct engagement and rejecting systems that try to intermediate that. Dual power is about constructing workable alternatives alongside established powers, creating options for later acceptance or co-option. Staying with the trouble is about maintaining responsibility between the hype of techno-optimism and the gloom of defeat. Counterfoil research raises questions about the need for dominant systems, even as you're an active participant in those systems. Finally, prefigurative politics is about walking the talk along the way, showing others that another world is possible. Okay, that's it. You're all properly schooled anarchists now. In the next video, we'll get to work building some nice post-scarcity anarchist AI infrastructure using your phones and your laptops.